Prague 1580. The Jewish quarter Josefov pulsed with life, a vibrant tapestry woven from centuries of tradition and resilience. Yet beneath the surface of daily life, a disquieting tension simmered. Whispers of accusation, like tendrils of poison ivy, crept through the city, threatening to choke the community's fragile peace. Rabbi Judah Loew ben Bezalel, the Maharal, was the spiritual beacon of Prague's Jewish community. A scholar of immense intellect and a mystic of profound faith, he dedicated his life to safeguarding his people. He pored over sacred texts seeking guidance, a storm brewing in his heart mirroring the one gathering around his community. His student, Chaim, a young man of unwavering devotion, served as Rabbi Loew's scribe and confidant. He sought to absorb the Maharal's wisdom, hoping to serve the community as earnestly as his mentor. In the dimly lit taverns of Prague, fueled by ignorance and malice, seeds of hatred were sown. False accusations of ritual murder and blood libel, ancient and baseless, were resurrected, poisoning the minds of the populace. A conspiracy was brewing, spearheaded by those who sought to exploit religious tensions for their own gain. Pearl, known for her wisdom and empathy, tended her garden with the same care she offered her community. She felt the unease in the air, the subtle shifts in mood that presaged danger. Within the sacred walls of the old new synagogue, the community sought solace and strength in prayer. The Maharal's voice, filled with fervor and conviction, resonated through the ancient space, a shield against the encroaching darkness. A mob, whipped into a frenzy by inflammatory rhetoric, gathered at the gates of the Jewish quarter. Their faces contorted with rage, they hurled insults and threats, demanding retribution for imagined crimes. The Maharal, his face etched with concern, stepped forward to confront the mob. His presence, though physically imposing, radiated an aura of authority and calm, momentarily silencing the rabble. Chaim stood beside him, his hand instinctively reaching for the small dagger hidden beneath his tunic. His loyalty to the Maharal was absolute, and he was prepared to defend him at any cost. From a nearby rooftop, Pearl watched with a heavy heart. She knew that words alone might not be enough to quell the rising tide of hatred. She began to recite psalms, her voice a whisper against the wind, praying for divine intervention. The situation teetered on the brink of disaster. The city guards, outnumbered and overwhelmed, struggled to maintain control. The mob, fueled by blind rage, threatened to break through the gates and unleash its fury upon the defenseless community. The Maharal closed his eyes, his lips moving in silent prayer. He knew that the fate of his community rested on his shoulders. He had to act, and he had to act quickly. The time for diplomacy had passed. He would have to explore other avenues, darker and more dangerous, to protect his people. He would delve into the ancient mysteries, seeking a power that could stand against the tide of hatred, whatever the cost. The weight of Prague's Jewish community rested heavily on Rabbi Loew's shoulders. Sleepless nights were now spent poring over ancient Kabbalistic texts, seeking a solution to the escalating persecution. He sought a defense, a protector, an answer hidden within the sacred words. He found it, the ancient formulas for creating a golem, a being of clay animated through the power of divine names. The text spoke of immense power, but also of immense risk. The creation process demanded absolute purity of heart and mind. Rabbi Loew summoned Chaim, his most trusted student, a young man of unwavering faith and keen intellect. He shared the discovery, explaining the potential benefits and the grave dangers of creating such a being. The Maharal detailed the process. The gathering of pure clay from the riverbank, the ritualistic chanting of specific letter combinations, the invocation of divine names, and the inscription of Emet, truth, upon the golem's forehead. Chaim voiced his concerns. "Master, are we not tempting fate, playing God? What if this creature becomes uncontrollable? What if its power corrupts?" Rabbi Lo acknowledged the risks. "Indeed, Chaim, the path is fraught with peril, but inaction is a greater danger. We must act, even if it means walking a narrow and dangerous road. We must do what we can to protect our community." Under the cloak of darkness, Rabbi Lo, aided by Chaim, began the arduous task. First, the gathering of the clay. It had to be pure, untouched by impurity. Only the banks of the Vltava, blessed by the flowing waters, would suffice. Chaim worked alongside Rabbi Lo, the silence broken only by the gentle lapping of the water against the shore and the rhythmic thud of the shovel. Each scoop of clay was imbued with intention, with hope, and with a silent prayer for the safety of their people. Inside the old new synagogue, under the watchful eyes of centuries of history, the clay began to take form. Rabbi Lo, his hands guided by years of study and faith, shaped the golem's body, imbuing it with strength and purpose. The air crackled with energy as Rabbi Lo and Chaim began the incantations. Ancient Hebrew words imbued with power filled the synagogue, resonating with the very stones. The divine names, carefully pronounced, weaved a tapestry of life around the inert form. With trembling hands, Rabbi Lo inscribed the word Emet, truth, upon the golem's forehead. The letters glowed with an ethereal light, a spark of divine energy igniting the clay form. The golem stirred, clay shifted, muscles of earth flexed. Slowly, deliberately it rose. Yassel, the golem of Prague, was alive. The Vltava flowed silently, its dark waters reflecting the anxiety that gripped Rabbi Lo. Tonight, he would attempt what no rabbi had dared in centuries, to breathe life into clay. Chaim, his loyal student, meticulously prepared the clay, mixing it with water drawn from the heart of the Vltava. Each movement was deliberate, guided by the Maharal's instructions. Pearl, her heart filled with both hope and apprehension, offered silent prayers, her presence a beacon of faith in the encroaching darkness. With practiced hands, Rabbi Lo sculpted the clay, molding it into the form of a man, tall and strong. Each touch was infused with intention, each curve shaped with purpose. The golem lay inert, a vessel awaiting its soul. The word Emet, truth, was inscribed on his forehead, a promise and a burden. The Maharal closed his eyes and began to chant. Ancient Hebrew words imbued with mystical power filled the night. The air thrummed with unseen energy. Chaim watched, his heart pounding in his chest, as the Maharal invoked the divine names. He prayed for guidance, for protection, for the success of this perilous endeavor. Pearl felt a shift in the air, a palpable sense of something momentous occurring. A wave of energy washed over her, leaving her breathless. A tremor ran through the golem's clay form. His limbs twitched. The word Emet on his forehead glowed faintly. Slowly he sat up. His eyes opened, revealing a vacant yet powerful gaze. The golem was alive. Rabbi Lo stared at his creation, a mixture of awe and apprehension swirling within him. He had brought life into the world, but what consequences would follow? The golem stood, towering over the Maharal, his gaze blank, awaiting instruction. Yassel, the protector, was ready to serve. In the days following Yassel's creation, a fragile sense of hope began to blossom within the Jewish quarter. The golem stood as a silent sentinel, a promise of protection in a world that often seemed determined to crush them. Yasel's presence alone was enough to deter the casual taunts and petty harassment that had become commonplace. His silent watch instilled a newfound sense of security. One evening, a group of drunken men, emboldened by liquor and prejudice, cornered a Jewish merchant. But before they could inflict any real harm, Yasel intervened. He did not strike, did not speak, but his very presence was enough to send them scurrying. Word of Yasel's strength spread quickly. He helped with arduous tasks, moving heavy objects and aiding those in need, always under the watchful eye of Chaim, who ensured he followed Rabbi Lowe's instructions precisely. One day, an elderly woman tripped and fell. Yasel, under Pearl's guidance, gently cleared the area and stood guard while she tended to the injured woman, ensuring no one disturbed them. The community's initial fear began to give way to gratitude. They saw Yasel not as a monster but as a protector. Rabbi Lowe, however, remained cautious, aware of the immense power he had unleashed. When a town crier attempted to spread false accusations against the Jewish community, Yasel intervened swiftly. He seized the scroll containing the lies and crushed it, silencing the hateful message. Chaim dedicated himself to teaching Yasel the nuances of justice and mercy, constantly reinforcing the principle that his strength should be used for protection, not retribution. Pearl, with her innate empathy, tried to connect with Yasel on a more human level, offering him small kindnesses and treating him with respect, hoping to awaken a sense of compassion within the clay giant. Despite the successes, Rabbi Lowe could not shake a growing sense of unease. Yasel's power was immense, his understanding limited. The line between protector and destroyer was becoming increasingly blurred. During Sabbath prayers, Yasel stood guard outside the old new synagogue, a silent testament to the community's newfound sense of security. Yet, even in this moment of peace, a shadow of doubt lingered in Rabbi Lowe's heart. Rabbi Lowe knew that the peace Yasel provided was fragile, built upon a power that was difficult to control. The true test was yet to come, and he feared the consequences of his creation might be more devastating than he could ever imagine. The Maharal wrestled with the double-edged sword he had forged. Yasel, the Golem, was a protector, but his methods were increasingly problematic. The line between defense and destruction blurred with each passing day. A baker known for his anti-Semitic jeers was carelessly tossing spoiled bread into the street. A group of children, scavenging for food, were being pelted by the stale loaves. Yasel, interpreting the attack on the children literally, reacted. He did not strike the baker, but his solution was far from measured. The baker's stall, a ramshackle structure at best, was obliterated. Chaim, arriving moments later, witnessed the aftermath. The baker, though unharmed, was apoplectic. The children, initially grateful, were now frightened by the Golem's raw power. The Maharal arrived, his face a mask of disappointment. "Yasel," he said, his voice resonating with authority, "your strength must be tempered with wisdom. Protection does not necessitate destruction." Yasel, as always, remained stoic, his clay features unreadable. The Maharal knew he had to find a way to instill nuance into the Golem's understanding. Pearl, ever insightful, proposed a new approach. "Perhaps," she suggested, "we can teach Yasel through stories, parables that illustrate the complexities of human interaction." The Maharal considered her words. It was a departure from the direct commands he had been using, but perhaps subtlety was the key. "We shall try," he agreed. Thus began the Golem's education in the nuances of human morality. The Maharal, Chaim, and Pearl spent hours narrating stories, explaining the shades of gray that existed between right and wrong. Chaim, in particular, took on the task of anticipating Yasel's reactions. He would stage scenarios, present dilemmas, and ask the Golem how he would respond. The answers were often unsettling. Pearl focused on instilling compassion. She spoke of forgiveness, of understanding the motivations behind actions, of offering mercy even to those who had wronged them. The Maharal watched, a seed of hope flickering in his heart, but he knew deep down that the true test was yet to come. Prague's simmering tensions were about to boil over, and Yasel would once again be called upon to defend them. Would this new education be enough? Rabbi Lowe, burdened by the Golem's increasing instability and the palpable tension in Prague, sought the root cause of the city's unrest. He suspected a deliberate manipulation, a hand stoking the flames of hatred. Chaim, tasked by Rabbi Lowe, investigated whispers circulating amongst the city's lower classes, rumors of lavish bribes and promises of land for those willing to incite violence against the Jewish community. Pearl, with her intuitive understanding of people, moved through the marketplace, subtly questioning those who seemed to harbor resentment towards the Jewish quarter. She listened patiently, piecing together fragments of information. Chaim laid out the evidence he had gathered, a list of known agitators receiving payments from a source he could not yet identify. The names were familiar, individuals known for their anti-Semitic rhetoric. Pearl added her observations. She had discovered a pattern of unusual gatherings at a secluded estate just outside the city, owned by a nobleman named Lord Balthazar. Lord Balthazar, a man consumed by ambition and greed, saw the religious tensions as an opportunity to seize power. He funded the agitators, fueling the unrest, hoping to destabilize the city and position himself as its savior at a hefty price. Chaim, risking discovery, infiltrated the outskirts of Lord Balthazar's estate, meticulously documenting the comings and goings. He observed suspicious shipments of weapons and gatherings of unsavory characters. Pearl, using her knowledge of calligraphy, crafted a forged letter designed to expose Lord Balthazar's conspiracy to the city council. It was a risky gamble, but a necessary one. Rabbi Lowe scrutinized the forged letter, weighing the potential consequences of its dissemination. It was a dangerous weapon, capable of either exposing the truth or further inflaming tensions. Chaim, entrusted with the delicate task, delivered the forged letter to a sympathetic member of the city council, a man known for his fairness and integrity. He hoped the evidence would be enough to sway the council's opinion. Unaware of the impending storm, Lord Balthazar reveled in his perceived success, confident that his machinations were proceeding according to plan. As the evidence against Lord Balthazar began to surface, the Golem stood watch, a silent guardian against the darkness that threatened to engulf Prague. The battle for the city's soul was about to begin. The weight of the Golem's creation pressed heavily on Rabbi Lowe. Sleep offered no escape, only visions of unchecked power and unintended consequences. Each day, Yasel's strength grew, but with it, so did the Maharal's apprehension. "Rebbe," Chaim began, his voice trembling slightly, "the people are afraid. Yasel's actions, though intended to protect, are excessive. The baker whose stall was overturned, he was only suspected of overcharging." Rabbi Lowe sighed, running a hand over his weary face. "I know, Chaim. The line between protector and oppressor blurs with each passing day. I created him to safeguard our people, but at what cost? Pearl added softly, the power to create carries an immense burden, Reba. We must consider not only the immediate good, but also the long-term consequences of our actions. Is this protection truly serving our community, or is it sowing seeds of fear and resentment? Unseen, Yassel stood sentinel, his clay eyes observing the ebb and flow of life in the Jewish quarter. He interpreted every raised voice, every furtive glance, as a potential threat, his understanding of nuance as limited as the clay from which he was formed. One afternoon, a petty argument between two merchants escalated into a shouting match. Yassel, perceiving a threat to the peace, intervened with brute force, scattering goods and terrifying onlookers. Rabbi Lowe arrived to witness the aftermath, his heart sinking. Yassel, Rabbi Lowe said, his voice firm but laced with disappointment, you were created to protect, not to destroy. You must learn to discern between true danger and mere disagreement. Chaim, ever hopeful, tried to explain the nuances of human interaction to the Golem, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Yassel's understanding was limited to the literal, the concrete, the absolute. Pearl watched, her heart heavy with concern. He is a child in a giant's body, she murmured to Chaim. He lacks the wisdom and compassion to wield such power responsibly. Back in his study, Rabbi Lowe wrestled with the agonizing truth. He had sought to protect his community, but in doing so, he had unleashed a force he could no longer control. The ethical implications of his creation weighed heavily on his soul. He began to write, meticulously documenting the rituals, the incantations, the divine names that had brought Yassel to life. He knew that the knowledge he possessed was too dangerous to be wielded lightly, that the price of power was responsibility, a burden he now bore alone. As the sun set over Prague, casting long shadows across the Jewish quarter, Rabbi Lowe knew that a difficult decision lay ahead. The protection of his community demanded it, even if it meant sacrificing the very creation he had brought into being. The nobleman's orchestrated chaos had reached a fever pitch. A coded message, intended to incite a riot against the Jewish community, was twisted, amplified by the Golem's literal interpretation. A directive to cleanse the city of evil became a rampage. Yassel, the Golem, began tearing down structures, his immense strength unleashed upon the unsuspecting populace. He did what he was asked. Chaim raced through the panicked streets, trying to stem the tide of chaos. His voice, however, was lost amidst the din of destruction and terror. Pearl, ever compassionate, transformed the old new synagogue into a sanctuary, tending to the injured and offering solace to those who had lost everything. The Maharal confronted his creation. He attempted to reason, to plead, but the Golem, bound by its literal interpretation, remained deaf to his pleas. The Golem marched on, its purpose perverted, its actions causing untold devastation. The heart of Prague was now in its path. Desperate, Chaim consulted his most trusted resource, the Talmud. He searched for any passage, any hint that could help them regain control. Amidst the destruction, Pearl's unwavering compassion provided a beacon of hope, a reminder of the humanity they were fighting to preserve. The Maharal turned to the ultimate source of strength. He prayed for guidance, for the wisdom to make the impossible choice that lay before him. The Powder Tower, a symbol of Prague's enduring spirit, stood in the Golem's path. One more misinterpreted command and the city would be forever scarred. Chaim, breathless, found a passage offering a desperate solution, a way to stop the Golem, but the cost would be unbearable. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Rabbi Lo knew what he had to do. The city's survival demanded a sacrifice that would haunt him forever. The golem must be stopped, whatever the cost. The weight of the world, or at least Prague, pressed down on Rabbi Lo. He knew what he had to do, but the thought of dismantling Yassel, of extinguishing the spark of life he had kindled, tore at his soul. Each potential path stretched before him, laden with consequences. Chaim, sensing his mentor's torment, lingered outside the study. He knew Rabbi Lo was wrestling with a difficult decision regarding the golem. He could only imagine the pain his mentor was in. He wished he could offer comfort, but knew that some burdens could only be carried alone. Pearl stood beside Chaim, her presence a silent reassurance. She understood the complexities of the situation, the ethical tightrope Rabbi Lo was forced to walk. Deactivating the golem was the only option, but how could one bring themselves to do it? A deep breath filled Rabbi Lo's lungs. He straightened his back, the weight of responsibility settling firmly upon him. Delaying the inevitable would only lead to further disaster. He had to act. He had to end the golem's existence. The old new synagogue awaited. It was there, in the sacred space where Yassel had been brought to life, that he would be returned to the earth. The morning air was crisp and cold, mirroring the chill in Rabbi Lo's heart. Yassel stood silently, awaiting instruction. His simple, unwavering obedience was a stark contrast to the internal turmoil raging within Rabbi Lo. The golem's existence was purely to serve and protect, a purpose that would soon be extinguished. Rabbi Lo raised his hand, a signal he dreaded giving. He saw no malice in the golem, only a reflection of the purpose for which he was created. The fault, he knew, lay not with the clay giant, but with the hubris of man. Yassel remained still, awaiting Rabbi Lo's command. The word emet truth shone brightly on his forehead, a constant reminder of the golem's pure, albeit limited, understanding of the world. With trembling hands, Rabbi Lo reached up and erased the aleph, the first letter of emet, transforming truth into met death. The divine spark began to flicker, its light dimming within the clay form. Yassel shuddered, his clay body beginning to crumble. The life force that animated him receded, leaving behind only inert matter. Dust and small pieces of clay fell to the synagogue floor. Rabbi Lo watched as Yassel disintegrated, returning to the dust from which he came. A wave of sadness washed over him, a profound sense of loss for the creature he had brought into being. He whispered a prayer for the soul that never was, for the potential unfulfilled. With a heavy heart, Rabbi Lo turned and walked away, leaving behind the remnants of his creation. The sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust motes in the air, a silent testament to the delicate balance between protection and control, between creation and destruction. The lesson, etched in clay and sorrow, would not be forgotten. The decision weighed heavily on Rabbi Lo. The golem, his creation, his protector, had become a danger to the very community he was meant to safeguard. The time had come to undo what he had wrought, to return the clay to the earth. The air crackled with anticipation as Rabbi Lo began the ancient ritual. The Hebrew letters, imbued with divine power, hung heavy in the air. Each incantation was a hammer blow against Rabbi Lo's own soul. Chaim, his face streaked with tears, could barely watch. He had assisted in the golem's creation, and now he witnessed its undoing. He understood the necessity, but his heart ached for the silent protector. Pearl, her own heart heavy, offered Chaim a silent solace. She had seen the golem's good, but she also recognized the danger he posed. This was a sacrifice for the greater good. The golem, Yasel, began to crumble. The divine spark that had animated him flickered and died. The Hebrew word etched on his forehead, Emet, truth, faded, returning to the dust from whence it came. Rabbi Lo stood amidst the dust, the remains of his creation. The relief was profound, but it was mingled with a deep sense of loss. He had created life, and he had taken it away. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon him. Chaim helped Rabbi Lo gather the remnants of the golem. The task was completed in silence, a somber act of respect for what had been, and a reminder of the power they had wielded. Pearl watched them, her mind filled with questions about the nature of life, the limits of human ambition, and the delicate balance between power and responsibility. Rabbi Lo, carrying the golem's remains in a simple wooden box, ascended the winding staircase to the attic of the old new synagogue. This would be Yasel's final resting place. The attic, a repository of forgotten things, became Yasel's tomb. The golem, the protector, reduced to dust and memory. The silence was profound, broken only by the creaking of the ancient timbers. Back in his study, Rabbi Lo returned to his books, seeking wisdom and understanding. The events of the past weeks had shaken him to his core. He knew that the legend of the golem would endure, a reminder of both the power and the peril of human ambition. The golem was gone, but the memory remained. The Jewish quarter of Prague, spared from destruction, continued to thrive. The story of the Golem of Prague, a chronicle of faith and redemption, would be told and retold, a cautionary tale of the delicate balance between protection and control, a testament to the enduring power of hope, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure.